hands, and they're killing Russians. They're killing a lot of Russians. So, and we don't have to. We're not losing any Americans. The Ukrainians are killing a lot of Russians. They're destroying a lot of Russian tanks. This is a great investment. You know, I feel like I'm back in the Wild Wild West, and you know, the snake oil salesman is showing up. You know, and for all your ailments, here's, you know, Doc Smith's liniment. You put it on, and it'll all feel better. You know, that's what Biden's doing. You know, give him the money, and everything will be okay. But so the timing, we know that this is a political assessment. Now, I haven't gone to the obvious conclusion of a politicized assessment, but we can admit right up front, this is a political assessment. It's been released by the executive branch, which is the ones authorized to make this happen, to Congress, the legislative branch, for a political purpose, to create the conditions for the freeing of $60 billion. So it's a political assessment. Now let's look at the assessment itself. I will just say, to cut to the chase here, there's not a military professional, and I have to underscore the term professional, who believes this assessment. It's just ludicrous in the extreme. It's stupid. It's so stupid as to be insulting. The probability of kill factors alone. I mean, how do you kill a Russian soldier? Let's just get into that. How does it happen? Because especially when the Russians are trying to kill you at the same time. So you bring up artillery. I want to fire an artillery shell downrange, because artillery is the #1 killer on the battlefield right now. Fire a round downrange, bam, and kill me some Russians. Meanwhile, the Russians, for every round I'm firing downrange at them, are firing, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds at me. Now, we can just go ahead and give ourselves credit for having really good artillery. I mean, we'll call them magic artillery shells. Every time we fire a round, it goes downrange and it kills something. It doesn't. Usually you fire a lot of artillery shells to kill something, but we'll just give them credit for magic artillery shells. Fire, kill. Let's say you fire and you kill one of theirs. Okay, bam, boom. Oh no, now they only have 7 artillery rounds back. They fire 7 at us. One of them's going to hit me and kill me. So I'm dead now. And that's going to be replicated down the whole battle. Just the ability to mass fires alone puts the probability of kill correlation overwhelmingly on the side of the Russians. So the Russians are positioned just by the superiority of their sizes and numbers to kill more Ukrainians than the Ukrainians are positioned to kill us. And we can take this to every extreme you want, but it even gets better because the Ukrainian Air Force is virtually non-existent. They pop up a couple airplanes here now and then, they fire some bombs and all of a sudden they kill Russians. Of course they kill Russians, but the Russian Air Force is everywhere, slaughtering the Ukrainians, slaughtering them. And it just goes on and on and on and on. The Russians are on the defensive. Now that's important because normally when you attack, you want a 3-to-1 advantage when you go forward to the attack, because the advantage is normally with the defender. So you need more attackers than defenders. So you'd expect the Ukrainians to be losing more. And that's if everything's going well. But the Ukrainians have admitted that nothing went well on this counteroffensive. Everything went wrong. Minefields, they got bogged down. So all the things on the battlefield that are supposed to be killing Russians ain't killing Russians. They're being killed by Russians. What I'm trying to say is this is impossible, what they're saying. It's a literal physical impossibility to have what they say happened to the Russians. It hasn't happened. It's the evidence is overwhelming that this is a BS made up assessment. Now, how would this happen? Well, gosh, I don't know. First of all, is it possible that U.S. intelligence could be politicized like this? I don't know, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Don't we remember when a president, George W. Bush, through his administration, gave the U.S. intelligence community the orders to fix the intelligence around the policy, meaning we want to invade Iraq. We're going to use as the excuse weapons of mass destruction. Find me some weapons, baby. And the U.S. intelligence community went, Oh, yeah, sure. What the hell? We'll look at everything and go, oh, that looks like a weapon. That could be 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 a weapon. Here, we have weapons. There weren't any weapons. And they knew there weren't any weapons, but they were fixing the intelligence, cherry picking this data, this data, this data, this data, this data. When you do battle damage assessment, I have a little bit of experience in this. Let me give you an example of how that battle damage can be spun in a way that isn't a bold-faced lie. Because I'd like to believe that while intelligence can be politicized, that your basic analyst isn't an inherent liar. But what they do want to do is please the boss. Now, during the Gulf War, the one that I was involved in, one aspect that I was involved in was counter-Scud operations. That means that we're looking for the Iraqi Scud missile launchers, mobile missile launchers, before they fire their missiles at Israel or at the Gulf Arab states, and then we want to destroy them. And somewhere around week 2 of the air war, I noticed something because the intelligence said that the Iraqis had 19 mobile launchers. That was the pre-war intelligence, pretty accurate because they had 19. Wow. So, and week 2, I'm going through all the battle damage reports of pilots who were flying over Iraq at great risk. Some of them are shot down, so, some are killed, made prisoner. These it's a war. These aren't cowards. They're out there trying to do a job, and they've reported they've killed 64 mobile missile launchers. And I'm like, can't be. Physically can't be. 19. If you've killed all 19, that would be 19, but you've killed 64. But they're still firing them. Missiles are being fired 6 at a time, 5 at a time. So that implies if they're firing 6 at a time and you've killed 64, there must have been 70 launchers, but there's no evidence of this. Even if we give them credit for having an indigenous launcher program, that would be another 10, a dozen launchers, not 64. So something's going on. We're hitting something that we think is a missile launcher, but it ain't a missile launcher. That happens all the time. Pilot reports are notoriously inflated. The same thing with you're firing artillery downrange. I mean, do you really have eyes on target? No. You might have a drone up there. And so you see 10 guys running and you fire artillery rounds. It goes boom, 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 boom. And 10 guys aren't running. We killed all 10. No, they're on the ground, down, moving, not being killed. You didn't kill anybody. That's the reality. So, but these reports are coming in that are inflated. They're inflated by people who think they did something. So now the Ukrainians are out there and they're submitting their reports. Or you have guys on satellites who are counting things. And one of the things we did in the war is because you can't count everybody because it's impossible. What you do is you say, if we drop, say, for every 1 ton of bombs we drop, we assume that we killed X number of troops and X number of tanks. So now it becomes, a simple mathematical problem. How many artillery shells did you fire? We fired 7,000. What's the table say? We should have killed, 400 men and 20 tanks. Fired 7,000 rounds, killed 400 men, 70 tanks. Goes down, boom, boom. Also, all this data is out there. It's crap data. It's BS. And now you have an analyst who knows it's crap data. It's BS. But the boss says, we need to show that the money we're sending to Ukraine is resulting in dead Russians. So the analyst goes through and he says, well, if I cherry pick all the intelligence reports that say we killed all this stuff, wow, we have an 87% success rate. We've killed 87% of the Russian army. We're really good. No, we're really bad. And this is the fact. The Russians, let me say it this way. The Russians started the conflict with around 220,000 troops in the general area going into Ukraine. Since that time, they've mobilized 300,000 and they've received around 450,000 volunteers. So that's 750 plus 2, about 950,000 troops. Of this 950,000 troops that have been employed in the zone, you have some rotation as well. Some conscripts that are rotating in, some contract soldiers that are coming in from everywhere. About 1.2 million Russians have rotated through and are serving in the special military operation zone. Of this, we can say that the number of dead is around 50,000 dead. That's a fair assessment. And the number of wounded is around 150,000. So that's 200,000 out of 1.2 million. That's a lot of guys, first of all. Let's understand it, that the idea that Russia's not taking losses, not taking hits on this one is absurd in the extreme. This is a very, very bloody war. 50,000 dead, 150,000 wounded is a fair assessment. I would call it a liberal assessment, meaning that I'm giving the Ukrainians more credit than maybe they deserve. The number could be less, but it's not going to be more than this. So that's a fair number. Now, when they say 87%, they're talking about casualties. They're talking about dead and wounded. So their numbers, what they would put it at, 87% of 320,000. So they're talking about a roughly, I'm not a good mathematician, but around 300,000. So to be frank, their numbers are off by about 100,000. That shows you, how intelligence can be inflated here, there, and everything. 100,000. But that's not the point. They're saying of the original forces in. I'm giving you numbers that include the Donetsk militia, the Lugansk militia, Wagner, volunteer units that fall out, units belonging to the Ministry of Interior or the Russian National Guard, units that fall outside of the Ministry of Defense, the Russian army per se. I'm giving you total figures. What they're talking about is of the Russian army, the 300 and some odd thousand that were available at the time. Those are the casualties. So their numbers are highly inflated with a very select, pool of data. I'm going expansive data, everything, and the numbers are there. So you can't directly correlate these numbers. On tanks, understand this. You can take a tank out, but if you don't remove that tank and give it to the Ukrainians, what tends to happen is the Russians recover the carcass and repair it and put it back in. They have these repair and restoration units right there at the battlefield that are taking these things in. If they can repair them right there, they do. And they're very effective. They'll get a destroyed tank in there and they will replace an engine. They will replace a sprocket. They will do what they need to do, rewire it, and bam, it's back out into the battlefield to be used again. Tanks that are really badly destroyed go back to the manufacturer where they remanufacture it. And I've seen the photographs of the tanks coming in, and I've seen the photographs of the tanks coming out. The tanks coming out look like they're brand new tanks off the off the assembly line. So is it possible that the Russians lost 2,000 tanks? Yeah, it's possible. This is a war. This is a modern war. Is it possible they lost 2,000 tanks irretrievably? Hell no. Of those 2,000 tanks they lost, the vast majority of those tanks, and I would say over 1,500, 1,700, had been repaired and put back into combat. And in addition to that happening, Russia has been manufacturing brand new tanks. So the way they isolated him, he's a man who has outlived his usefulness. He was, somebody who was handpicked to be brought in. I mean, if you take a look at his TV show, Servant of the People, take a look who funded it, the timing of it in relation to the building him up as a presidential candidate to replace Poroshenko. You see the hidden hand of Western intelligence there, primarily MI6, but the CIA as well. And we know this. I mean, again, Scott, there's a lot of speculation taking place there, isn't there? Well, I don't know. What was one of the most famous sayings that Zelensky had early on this conflict? The first poster that came out. I know it's on the tip of my tongue. I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. Do you remember that? I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. Because somebody had dared say, why doesn't the CIA get him out so he can go live in his mansion in Miami? I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. All over headlines. I mean, and that was the beginning of the Zelensky war guy, tough guy. Now he's wearing all his.
He's out there. He's in the fatigues. He comes to Congress in the fatigues. People are saying get a damn suit, but he's in his army fatigues. Yeah.
I mean, I tried to tell him, Zelensky, green only counts when you have the eagle globe and anchor on it, pal. Otherwise, you're just a fake, and he is a fraud. But the point is, they built him up. But then the truth came out.
somebody asked, "Hey, we've been looking all over for when was this speech made? When did he make this statement? Do you have it on recording? Is there something here?" And finally, a statement came out of the U.S. Embassy. Well, Zelensky actually didn't say that. That was a statement made by a CIA official attached to the U.S. Embassy in Kiev. Oh, so the CIA is scripting everything. Yes, now you've broken the code. Zelensky is literally an actor. He's an actor playing a part. There's no original thought in that poor little man's mind. He's reading script after script after script. And you know what happens? I mean, everybody's seen it when you watch a good TV series. The first season's outstanding. Then they go into the second season, you're going, what the hell happened to the writing?
Especially these days in the era of streaming, especially with a lot of these programs, it's like one season good, and then the rest.
You're like, who's doing the writing? Well, the problem is you couldn't sustain. This wasn't like Servant of the People that I think got 5 seasons out of it. They're having trouble. They had a good first season. Zelensky had a good first season. He really did. Hell, he won an Oscar. I mean, just ask Sean Penn. He won an Oscar. I mean, so yeah. But
Sean Penn wants to melt the rest of his for ammunition. Ukraine certainly needs it. But
the second season, it's not going well. The poor writing and everything. You know what happens when the season starts to fall? You got to kill off some people. You got to bring in new blood, and I think Zelensky is going to be killed off. Literally, maybe, but at a minimum, he's just going to disappear, and they're going to bring in somebody else, because this is all grotesque theater of the absurd. Every aspect, from the Canadian Parliament, which was a scripted event up until, again, the whole thing about bad writing is you don't realize it's bad writing until you actually air the episode and all the critics go, what the hell was that? And suddenly everybody just wakes up and goes, wow, that was really bad writing. Well, why didn't you review that in the lead up to everything about this script is bad from the count? Why? Again, to show you that why it's this PR running this. No military professional would ever broadcast the counteroffensive the way the Ukrainians did. They literally scripted exactly what they're doing. Literally scripted, and the Russians went, thank you very much. And they built this defensive line, and now everybody's surprised. The Russians have built a very extensive defense. You told them where you're going to attack, man.
They just read The Economist. That's all they had to do. Read The Economist, read the Wall Street Journal.
And you told them when you're going to attack, and you told them with what kind of forces you're going to attack. Not only that, you told them what tactics you're going to use. Miley, I think in May, goes to Germany, and he's there. And it was hilarious because you read the article, undisclosed military training base in an undisclosed NATO country because we have to protect the operational security. Miley, well, we're out here doing combined arms training. We're taking U.S. doctrine and we're bringing it together in a training package so that the Ukrainians can use combined arms training in their attack. They're going to revamp their tactics to use NATO tactics, and the Russians are going, rewind that. Thank you very much. Guys, pull out NATO tactics, combined arms training. Okay, let's revamp our defenses. They literally told the Ukrainians everything. They might as well have handed the operational plan to the Russians and said, this is what's going to happen. That's why they got their butts kicked. This is poorly written theater. Horribly written. They're trying to score points by they released all this because they have to convince you and me and the rest of the Western audience that there's really going to be a counteroffensive. Because people were starting to say, why are we sending all that money there? What's the purpose of this again? I mean, there was that whole battle of Bakhmut. Everybody's forgotten about that. The meat grinder, 70,000 dead Ukrainians, grinding them up. Why are they doing it? People are starting to get a little, no. Hey, our ratings are going down, screenwriter. What do we got to do? Let's reintroduce, episode 10, the counteroffensive. The general approaches the desk. He looks at the reporter with a very stern look, and he says, we're going to launch a counteroffensive. And then you have to write and tell everybody what the counter, because this is theater. You don't fight a war this way, but that's exactly what's happening. Everything the West does is spin. It's spin. It's tragic spin because there's a lot of people dying, mostly Ukrainian. But it's not war. It's not military art. And frankly speaking, everybody in NATO involved in this, everybody in the U.S. military, should be relieved for incompetence. If the U.S. Army threw American lives away this callously, they would be hauled before Congress, and they'd probably get
be no
some
more.
sort of subpoena for criminal negligence. Yeah, it would be the end of their.
And the American public themselves would would be a scandal. I mean, the number of casualties in Iraq, Afghanistan, these places paled in comparison to what's happening
In World War II,
Ukraine.
In the Battle of Tarawa, the Marines had a very bad day. Their amphibious vessels they had a mistake about the tides, and they thought they were going to be able to take their amphibious craft right into the shore, and instead they got stuck on reefs about a mile out, and the Marines had to wade in chest high water, a mile of water, getting machine gunned down by the Japanese. There's no cover. You just got to keep walking, and you're either going to live or you're going to die. You don't get a choice. The Japanese machine gunner gets to decide that. The photographs of the bodies bobbing in the wall, piled up on the sand, were prohibited to be published to the American people at the time. And indeed, the Marines were told, you can't have another battle like this, or else Congress is just going to say, what the hell's going on? Because already Congress is asking the question, why did you lose so many guys for this tiny little island? How did you go about losing this many people? Nobody wanted to talk about it. But, and that's just a couple thousand Marines. Imagine going to Congress and saying, because Congress is going, hey, we gave you all that money. You guys built up four armies. Where are they? Well, 8 to 9 out of every 10 guys that we train are dead or wounded now. Again, I'm not making that up. The military commissar of Poltava gave a statement. He said, out of every 100 guys that have been mobilized in Poltava, 80 to 90 of them are either dead or wounded. That's 80 to 90% casualty rate. Remember earlier I said 50 to 69% make combat ineffective. 80 to 90 means you ain't around anymore. You got nothing. So they're just, if this went up to the U.S. Congress, in World War II, they had on the European theater, the 36th Division, I think, was a Texas National Guard division, and they were getting ready to launch an attack across a river, the Rapino River or something in Italy, and the bombers came in. They were supposed to hit the Nazis on the other side. They greased their bombs early, and they blew the little snot out of the 36th Division, killed a whole bunch of Texans. All the Texan congressmen were screaming for blood, as they should be, incompetence like that. Now imagine having an American general hauled before Congress, and they said, what happened? Well, we got beat. Why? The Russians were better trained, better equipped than us. What do you mean? What do you mean better trained? How long does it normally take to train a soldier to do a combat breaching operation? Well, sir, by the time we do basic training, advanced training, about 2.5 years. And how long did you train the soldiers for this combat breaching operation? About 2.5 months. So you took soldiers, gave them 2.5 months training for a 2.5-year project, and you threw them into battle. Yes, sir, that's about it. But they were competent, right? I mean, at least they had good fundamental skills. Oh, no, sir, only 3 weeks of training. Well, how long does it take to train a Marine, a basic training? 13 weeks, sir. And Ukrainians, you gave them 3 weeks. Oh, yes, sir. And then you put them into equipment. Now, they were familiar with the Leopard tank, right? Oh, no, sir, they've never dealt with a Leopard tank before. How long does it take to train a Leopard tank operator? Well, sir, it takes about a year and a half to get a good Leopard crew up to speed. And how much time did you give the Ukrainians? Sir, we gave them 3 to 5 weeks. Do you see where I'm going with this, Danny? Mm-hmm. If this was an American explaining the deaths of American soldiers to U.S. Congress this way, they'd all be arrested, as they should be, criminally negligent. But now, because these are just Ukrainians, we don't care about you. This is the thing that everybody has to understand. What I just told you proves we don't care about Ukraine. We don't. If we did, we would never let this happen. We are simply using Ukraine as a vehicle to bring pain to Russia. That's it. We're willing, as Lindsey Graham said, to fight to the last Ukrainian. And that is sickening. You know, we talked about that 90-year-old Nazi and what he did during the war. You do understand that Americans are guilty of a crime that is larger than the crime that he and his Nazi colleagues committed. They killed, 100,000 Poles, 200,000 Russians, 40,000 Jews. We've killed 400,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We did it, not the Russians. Don't blame the Russians. We're the ones that led them to undertake the most complicated military operation imaginable, the breach of a heavily defended position. And we said, do this, and we didn't train them right. We didn't equip them right. We didn't prepare them. They were totally unprepared for this. And we said, go forward. And then we have the audacity halfway through it, after they've lost 71,000 guys. You heard people say, well, those Ukrainians are just casualty averse. What? You can say what you want about the Ukrainians, and I'm very critical of again, especially the leadership that has embraced Nazi ideology, etc. But the Ukrainian soldiers, even the ones with minimal training, big brass balls to do what they're doing. I challenge anybody in your audience right now, just if you get into a vehicle and drive to certain death. And if you make it, get out of the vehicle and keep advancing. These Ukrainians are courageous. And be the Russians. Imagine the Russians getting the snot pounded out by artillery, holding your position, not withdrawing, so that you can lay waste to the Ukrainians coming in. Both sides are staffed with some of the bravest soldiers imaginable. I think I told you a story, but I'll just tell it one more time, about the Battle of Bakhmut, where the Wagner troops surrounded about 20 Ukrainian soldiers in a basement. They said, surrender, brothers, surrender. We'll treat you well. We'll feed you. You'll go home, all that stuff. And what did the Ukrainians say? Russians don't surrender. And they fought to the death. They didn't say Ukrainians don't surrender. They said Russians don't surrender. Why? Because they're trained in the history and lore of the Soviet Union, of the Red Army, etc. And that's something that came out of World War I and World War II, where Russian soldiers were surrounded by the Germans and told to surrender. And they said, Russians don't surrender, and they fought to the death. This war is about Slavs fighting Slavs, brothers fighting brothers, cousins fighting cousins. This is the saddest kind of war imaginable. In America, we talk about the American Civil War. This is that kind of fight taking place right now. And the tragedy is, the Russians do they genuinely care about the Ukrainians. You just see video after video of Russian soldiers going in, taking care of the wounded, evacuating. There's a new sick video out where the Russians actually came in and picked up the Ukrainians that were abandoned by their own side. They treat them, give them first aid, and they start to evacuate them. There's a Ukrainian drone overhead watching this. And as the Russians start to evacuate, the Ukrainian drone calls in Ukrainian artillery fire to kill the Russians who were rescuing wounded Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are, their leadership is scum. The Russians actually treat the Ukrainians with respect. They capture them, they feed them, they give them first aid. There's a whole video of, I know a lot of this is propaganda, but it's still sincere. They invite the families to come in and visit the prisoners of war. So the girlfriends, the wives, the mothers all get to come and visit their sons, their husbands, their relatives in prison. I mean, this is tragic. The Russians care more about the Ukrainians than we do.
Yeah, and I think what's even more sick about this too is, as we were talking about earlier, that there's a script being written for Zelensky and for Ukraine's so-called leadership, and it almost feels like now, as we were talking about, the seasons, or this current season is just poorly written. It almost feels like at this very moment there really isn't much of a script left, and you have Zelensky kind of lashing out at the mouth, and it seems like there's a lot more tension here, and at the same time that there's this tension between basically his masters and himself, there's also this change in the narrative, which to me is even more heinous and underscores a lot of what you're saying here in terms of the difference between how the Ukraine's government, how NATO, how the United States are treating Ukrainians as compared to Russia. Now they're talking about a long war of attrition. This, mind you, for months and months and months, all of the people who have pay attention to this stuff with a non-neocon mentality have been talking about Russia fighting a war of attrition. Now the collective West is saying, oh no, this is a war of attrition, and we need to fight this till the end. And you have Alexei Arestovich talking about 2035. I mean, will there be any Ukraine left if that's the case? This is the leadership. This is basically all the leaders of this project now talking in this manner of, yeah, we'll just permanently do this to Ukraine. It'll just happen on and on and on and on, and we won't change our tune. We'll just continue to throw them out there until we can't any longer.
Look, the it takes two to tango. I mean, first of all, I always find it funny that the West talks about a frozen thing, a negotiated ceasefire, etc. But isn't it Zelensky that had his parliament pass a law that prohibits any talk of negotiation? And the Russians keep saying, you guys want us to negotiate, but I mean, you might want to talk to Zelensky to get the parliament to repeal the law that says he can't negotiate. But the Russians have made it clear, and again, they throw the words back of the West. Early on, Stoltenberg and others were saying that because the Russians don't want to negotiate, this is a war that will be decided on the battlefield. On the battlefield. Okay, well, and now they're going negotiating, and the Russians are going, no, I like that other thing you were saying. It's decided on the battlefield because that's where it's going to be decided. There will be no negotiation. First of all, who are they going to negotiate with? They tried it with the Ukrainians, the same ones that are there right now. They lied. Remember, Zelensky actually negotiated a treaty that was ready, a ceasefire agreement that could have brought an end to this war. The Germans and the French lied to the Russians about the Minsk Accords. There's a sham just to buy time to build up the Ukrainian army. Why are they going to believe them again? America's lied about everything we've ever done with Russia. Who are the Russians going to trust on this one? There's no one to trust. And if you can't trust, then you can't have negotiations. Plus, the Russians have made it clear that they have objectives that they're non-negotiable. And the Ukrainians have put forward just such unrealistic positions. I mean, the Russians have to withdraw to 1991 borders. Isn't going to happen. The Russians have to turn over their government to the International Criminal Court to be tried as war criminals. That ain't going to happen. The Russians have to pay reparations. That's not going to happen. It's stupid. It's if I could sit down and write demands to my town council and go to the town council meeting. I need you to dissolve the police department and give me all that money so I can build a golf course in my backyard. Well, that's not going to happen, Scott. Well, we're not going to have a settlement here until that happens. That's one of my conditions. Well, Scott, that's totally unrealistic. But nobody's telling Zelensky that. Well, actually, everybody told Zelensky. Remember, there was that peace summit they had in Saudi Arabia where 30 nations came together, and Zelensky went, send his guys down there, and they're like, here's our 10-point peace plan, total surrender by the Russians. And everybody else went, that ain't going to happen. You're so far off base. The Russians right now are in unconditional surrender mode. I mean, listen to Lavrov, listen to Putin, listen to everybody that speaks on this. There will be no negotiation. Ukraine will have to, agree to very specific things. But the sooner Ukraine agrees to it, the sooner this war can end, and the more territory Ukraine will have. Ukraine will never get Kherson back, never get Zaporizhia back, never get Lugansk back, never get Donetsk back. They will definitely never get Crimea back. But right now they can hold on to everything else. But if they continue this conflict and it goes on, if the Russians do push forward and start forcing the Ukrainians into this precipitous retreat, the Russians could very well end up having Kharkov, Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv, probably swing over, take Odessa, drive up to Transnistria, which means that entire Black Sea coast will be denied to the Ukrainians going forward. And once the Russians take it, at this juncture, I don't think they'd be giving it back. Again, not a Russian. They get to make their own minds. But, the Russians have made it clear that when Russian blood gets spilled on soil, it becomes Russian soil. And if the Ukrainians want to continue this fight and compel Russia to expend lives to take historically Russian cities like Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkov, Sumy, majority population, Russian populations, they're never going to give them back. Again, I hearken people to listen to Vladimir Putin's speeches, 2005 presentation, I believe, given in April. The one where he said that one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union, and everybody jumped in and went, see, that old Putin, he just wants to bring the Soviet Union back. But they didn't listen to the rest of the speech, where he said, because overnight tens of millions of Russians became homeless, I am the president of the Russian nation. The Russian nation isn't defined by the borders of the Russian Federation. It's defined by the location of the Russian people, people who have common culture, heritage, religion, language. And the people of Eastern Ukraine are, in the minds of Putin, part of the Russian nation. That doesn't mean that he wants to take them. Remember, in March, Russia was willing to give back these territories to Ukraine, but he just wants that the Ukrainian government treats the Russian population with respect, allows them to speak their language, and worship the way they want to, etc. The Ukrainians are the one who committed, basically ethnic and cultural genocide against the Russians. So the Russians aren't going to yield on any of this. And once they take Russian territory, territory that's populated by a majority Russian population, I don't see a situation where they give it back. Not at this stage of the game.
Time in Israel has been quite brutal in my lifetime in many different occasions. Has the public relations been so poor for Israel? I mean, even in these past incursions into Gaza, past bombing campaigns, even when there were massive numbers of Palestinians being killed, there was this justification, whether it was Hamas, terrorism, or whether it was just the spirit of Zionism, that really held and stuck, especially in the West. And it was easy to kind of put Palestinians aside. It seems like the energy against Israel is stronger. And I think that's both cumulative over the years. More and more people, especially American Jews, getting kind of fed up with the war crimes. But also, I think it has to do with right now, how Israel is being portrayed, and also how the United States is kind of not helping the situation. I wanted to play a video of your favorite politician, a little small clip, Lindsey Graham. I hope I don't send you to the hospital, because I know you you despise Lindsey Graham. But I think he's kind of emblematic of what we are seeing in terms of the doubling down. And so I'm going to play a small clip for you to react to, because I think this is a huge problem for the United States and for Israel, in terms of just how it's coming off in the world, and how I believe, and I want your reaction to this, how it is also contributing to the already existing weaknesses that you've pointed out to for Israel. But here we go.
Is there a threshold for you, and do you think there should be one for the United States government, at which the U.S. would say, let's hold off for a second in terms of civilian casualties? Is there a point at which you would start to question?
If somebody asked us after World War II, is there a limit what you would do to make sure that Japan and Germany don't conquer the world? Is there any limit what Israel should do to the people who are trying to slaughter the Jews? The answer is no. There is no limit. But here's what you need to do: be smart. Let's try to limit civilian casualties the best we can. Let's put humanitarian aid in areas that protect the innocent. I'm all for that. But this idea that Israel has to apologize for attacking Hamas, who's embedded with their own population, needs to stop. The goal is to destroy Hamas. Hamas is creating these casualties, not Israel.
I don't think anyone's
civilian casualties.
So, your reaction, Scott?
Well, I just want to point out that Lindsey Graham is a lawyer, and he's a U.S. Air Force lawyer, which means that he has been versed in the laws of war. He knows, for instance, the principle of distinction. He knows what distinction is, and you can't drop a bomb. You can't put a round down range unless you've made a distinction between civilian and military. Now, yeah, if there's commingling, you've got issues. And then the concept of proportionality comes in. What's proportional? For instance, to take out one Hamas leader who wasn't, he was a regional, battalion commander, the guy that was supposedly at this refugee camp.
there's no way America would ever allow the issue of proportionality to come in and say, we're going to put a bomb on target there that's going to kill 400 people to get one battalion commander. That's disproportional use of force, and that would be rejected. Any American who did that would be prosecuted for violating the laws of war. Lindsey knows this. He's better than that. But see, he's a politician. He's the slimiest kind of politician. He's a politician that's been pushing war forever. He operates totally outside the framework of law. He knows that everything he said there is wrong. There can be no collective punishment, Lindsey. You know that, Lindsey. You've been trained on that, but you are literally the worst kind of American. He is the worst American possible. If there's a way to strip people of their citizenship because of their failure to adhere to constitutional norms and values, then Lindsey should have his citizenship stripped, and then he should be tarred and feathered and marched off to wherever the hell we send, failed Americans. But no, he's horrible. He's useless, but he's playing to a base. It's the same base that Nikki Haley's playing to, or Vivek. I mean, did you see that video clip where we could put 100 Hamas heads on stakes? Hey, that ain't how we operate, buddy. I know you're just an entrepreneur. I know you made your money, fraudulently peddling pharmaceuticals. But we don't cut off heads in the U.S. military and put them on spikes and hanging out there. That's a war crime. Marines got in trouble, rightfully so, for peeing on dead Taliban in Afghanistan. You can't desecrate the dead, boss. You're never going to be president of the United States. You just disqualified yourself right there because you're a war criminal in the making. So is Nikki Haley. Every word she says out there about tweeting is all about collective punishment, no concept of distinction, proportionality. What gets me is Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley and all these other people sat there and they were citing the law of war, verse by verse about Russia and Ukraine. The Battle of Mariupol. This is indiscriminate collective punishment. There's no distinction between, when actually, and again, I do know the law of war. When I studied the Battle of Mariupol, and I have by speaking to a lot of people who were there on the ground, looking at the evidence, the Russians actually carried out a textbook example on how to adhere to the law of war in the most difficult of situations. They lost a lot of guys in Mariupol they didn't need to lose because they didn't want to stand back and level a building with civilians in it. They actually assaulted forward to gain control of the basement to evacuate the civilians under fire before they went back in and cleared the building by hand. Again, under the assumption that somewhere upstairs there might be other civilians that they don't want to kill. They didn't go in there in Mariupol and level buildings. In Bakhmut, it was different. In Bakhmut, the civilian population had already fled. And so the buildings where the Ukrainians were in, there were no civilians there. And so now you can drop a bomb, put the building down, which they did. But in Mariupol, where there was a significant civilian population, the Russians ran a textbook operation adhering to the laws of war. Nothing about what Israel is doing today is textbook. And yet Russia was called out by everybody as being a major violator, gross violator of international law and all that stuff. The Israelis, on the other hand, the Americans, we're not even trying to pretend that Israel is adhering to the law of war. We're basically just saying the law of war doesn't matter when it comes to Israel. And that sadly is the truth. No law has ever mattered when it comes to Israel. International law doesn't matter. The Security Council has passed resolutions. The General Assembly has passed resolutions, and Israel ignores every single one of them.
Yeah. And the United States stands right by, just continuously rejecting resolution after resolution. And you see the split quite clearly with regard to where nations and countries stand on this, with China and Russia supporting humanitarian assistance, supporting an actual ceasefire, while the United States and its vassal states continue to obstruct, despite the fact that now they're kind of all have their hands and their thumbs up there, what's trying to figure out how to get out of a bad situation. Because as I said, the public relations, and as you intimated, the public relations around this are incredibly bad. Most of even the mainstream war machine lovers, usually Joy and Reed tends to be on that side, but it seems like the tone and the mood is shifting here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we I know, Danny, you want me to keep these answers short, but you know, there ain't nothing simple in life. I think people need to understand that the U.S. wasn't always, bought and owned by the Israeli lobby. There was a time when we actually had a very big Arab lobby, the Arabists in the State Department, in the Pentagon, etc. There was a time when, in the lead up to the Gulf War back in 1990, Paul Wolfowitz got so mad at the Israeli government that he basically, hung up the phone and then had his secretary call and give them a number to the White House switchboard and said, call when you're serious about talking about, settlements. But until then, we don't want to talk to you. Could you imagine a White House doing that today, hanging up on a prime minister and telling him to stick it where the sun don't shine? There was pushback. The name Jonathan Pollard, does that mean anything to anybody nowadays? He's, of course, the American Jew who spied on behalf of Israel, and didn't spy in a little way. He stole the crown jewels. The crown jewels is a big book of all the frequencies that we monitor in the world, and how important they are. What information's on it? Are they encrypted? Have we solved the encryption? That's it. If you got the crown jewels, you'll know that we're listening to your phone call, you're listening to this, and then you'll stop talking. He took that and gave it to the Israeli government. And then the Israeli government, because they're such good friends of America, sold it to the Soviets, who sat there and said, thank you very much. And we literally overnight lost billions of dollars of surveillance capability, because everything we thought we were doing, now the Soviets knew. If they kept it going, they were passing us disinformation. If they shut it down, we didn't know where they shut it down to, and now we're going blind. So Jonathan Pollard did that on behalf of the state of Israel. That created a lot of animosity in a big section of the American government. And so there was always this pushback. And at that time, the pro-Israeli lobby had to become very aggressive and very innovative in their tactics. When I was running around trying to get Congress not to support this war in Iraq, I would go to, the senator's office, knock on the door. I'd get a 45-minute meeting, sit there and talk. And as I came out, there's a group of AIPAC guys. I knew them because when I resigned, they tried to recruit me. They wanted me to speak at the AIPAC conference. They offered me bribes. They offered me the whole thing to join their team. All I'd have to do is say that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Well, I ain't going to lie. And, even if you offer me $6 million, which they did, I ain't going to lie. So there went that deal. But they're bird dogging me going in, and they're reminding everybody, senators, congressmen alike, will primary you. That's their weapon, the primary. They write checks, but so do other people. What they can do is primary you. And a primary is a kiss of death. Primary isn't you running against a Democrat or Republican. A primary is they putting somebody up within your own party and putting pressure on the normal funding channels to drop you. You have to burn through all your money to now do a primary you weren't planning on doing, because you're building a war chest to run for election against the opposing political party, and you've burned yourself out. It's going to be a dirty campaign. All your dirty laundry is going up, and your other party opponents sitting there taking notes, and they're going to crush you in the general election. Primary is the kiss of death. That's what AIPAC does better than anybody else. And they go, we're going to primary you. And the long story short is, eventually, the Arabists were annihilated. The pro-Zionist lobby won. They were victory. They won. They own. This isn't anti-Semitic when I say this. Please don't interpret it. It's just a statement of fact. They own everything. And it's been a strategy that they played. They own Congress. Benjamin Netanyahu brags about it. There's videos about him saying how he owns Congress. He bought them all. They all sing for him. He's a man of such arrogance and hubris. He came during a presidential election and spoke to Congress in a way to promote
militias that are firing against American forces in Iraq and in Syria, believe it or not, are holding back. They could do a lot more. They're simply reminding the Americans that they're here and that there will be price to be paid so long as this conflict goes on, that nothing is free. And what has the United States done? We've responded very minimally. We've bombed a couple warehouses associated with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Command, but we've bombed those warehouses before in I guess Abu Kamal across the river from Al-Qaim. We've been hitting that place, the same place over and over again. It's like the Iranians go, okay, rebuild the warehouse so America can bomb it next week, kind of thing. We're not doing real harm on the Iranians because we don't want to. If we do real harm on the Iranians, then they get involved. And now we're talking about an expansive conflict, and we only got 2,000 guys in that region. That ain't a lot of guys. And if the whole region blows up, those 2,000 guys can be swamped. They can be overrun. And now we have to divert all our air power into that area. Again, who's going to pay for it? We don't have a budget for this. And now we're doing that. And this war gets out of control, spins out of control. This is a nightmare scenario for the Biden administration. And if it blows up enough, because another area that everybody's worried about is what's going to happen with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has done a masterful job of escalation management. They have been, I mean, it's like the Israelis, you know, are sitting there in this boxing match with Hamas, and Hamas split the eye, and Israel's bleeding here, and Hezbollah is just sitting there once in a while going, "Let me rub some salt in that wound for you." And he's like, "Come on, get out of here!" You know, boom, boom, pow, and they get salt in that wound. Stop it! You know, Hezbollah is just sitting there pissing them off because they're really putting, and it's hurting them. Remember how sophisticated I said the Houthi were. Understand that most of what Hezbollah is doing against Israel is economic in nature. Yes, they're taking down Israeli troops. They're destroying a lot of Israeli tanks, a lot of Israeli infrastructure. But what they're really doing is terrorizing the north so much that 70,000 Israelis had to be withdrawn from the northern settlements and resettled in temporary accommodations. That ain't free. That ain't free. It's costing Israel billions of dollars. And that 70,000 who, you know, they had jobs up there, which means they're working, they're producing, there's taxes, the economy kind of stuff. They're here now. They ain't working. They ain't producing. They're just sucking up resources. It's a huge, giant, you know, gutting of the Israeli economy. The same thing out of what Hamas is doing in the settlements in Negev. People tens of thousands had to be relocated. Man, this is a giant hole in the Israeli economy, and it's unsustainable. On top of that, 300,000 reservists. You know what a reservist is? It's a working man. It's a guy who has a job. He has a family. He is participating in the Israeli economic experience. And now he's not. Now he's in the reserves where he's getting a paycheck because they have to pay him, but he's not producing anything. That job is gapped. Whatever he was doing in the Israeli economy ain't happening right now. And billions of dollars. So what Hezbollah is doing, what the Houthi are doing, the economic impact on this is destroying the Israeli economy, destroying it. And this is unsustainable for Israel. So this alone is prompting the Israelis to say, you know, we have to resolve this fight. You got people like Gallant. I think he's the Minister of Defense right now. What a character, you know, with his genocidal talk. But he's talking about we're going to take it to them. Gallant knows, though, and so does the Israeli Defense Force, that if Israel were to open up a second front against Hezbollah, that Hezbollah will take Galilee, that northern Israel will fall. Because Hezbollah's got 80,000 guys. Many of them, most of them perhaps, are combat hardened. That means they've been fighting in that, you know, the Syrian conflict. These guys know war. They're very well trained, very well equipped, very well motivated, and they have a plan. If you think the Hamas plan that was executed on October 7th was innovative, you haven't seen anything yet. Hezbollah has a plan to take northern Israel, and they will take northern Israel, and there's nothing Israel can do to stop it, which is a nightmare. So nobody wants escalation. So in a way, because we can't afford to escalate, the United States can't afford to escalate, Israel can't afford to escalate, you make it even, you give the people who are putting the pressure on you even more latitude because they know you don't want to escalate. So they're going to push the envelope even more. and create more and more pressure. And that's what's happening right now. This is the untold aspect of this war, but it's this aspect that's probably going to promote the collapse of Israel more so than just Hamas defeating Israel in Gaza.
Yeah, and maybe lastly on this, do you feel like the confluence of these various aspects of Israel's brutal onslaught and what it's produced, both in its troubles with fighting Hamas on its own terrain, and the fact that that there is an axis of resistance that has been managing a conflict escalator that is prepared to move up. Do you feel like, given that Biden has given this deadline, that Israel will actually follow it? Because Israel's capacity for rational military and political behavior, especially since the aftermath of October 7th, appears to have diminished nearly to non-existence. I'm curious on your thoughts about that.
I mean, it's a tough political question here in America because of the control that the Israeli lobby has over everything. Congress, the presidency, the media, the spin. So it's an uphill struggle to get America to, change its policy regarding Israel. In the past, it was Israel can do no wrong. We support Israel no matter what. But we're now paying a price for that. And so I do believe you're going to see pressure being put on Israel. I think Netanyahu is finished. I think he's going to go. I think Biden is going to make it clear that continued American support of Israel is contingent upon a change in the Netanyahu government. We pretend that it doesn't mean Netanyahu is going to go, but if you dissolve this right-wing coalition, then Netanyahu can't continue as prime minister because it's consensus-driven. He has to get a ruling coalition. He won't be able to. Somebody else will step in and take over, and that's what we want. But here's the danger of all this, Danny. Here's the problem. And we got to be honest about this, because right now we're being lulled into a false sense of complacency. Hamas is kicking ass. There's no doubt about it. Hamas will not be defeated. But who likes Hamas? Does Egypt like Hamas? Nope. Does Jordan like Hamas? No. Does Syria like Hamas? Not really. They were just at war with them a couple of years ago. They tolerate Hamas. Turkey? Yeah, Turkey likes Hamas, but not that much. Not enough to go to war for them. And the further we get away, you realize that Hamas is very unpopular. And if we just erase the term Hamas and insert the term Palestinian, let's be honest, nobody cares about the Palestinians. There's a whole bunch of demonstrations taking place right now, but these are cause-effect demonstrations, meaning that if it weren't for the slaughter of the Gazans, these demonstrations wouldn't be happening. These people aren't going to go into the streets and demonstrate on behalf of a two-state solution or a one-state solution or a free Palestine. They're demonstrating because the bombing's happening. So what happens when the bombs stop falling, when the genocide stops? Are these people going to continue to be out there putting the pressure on the United States? Is the United States going to continue to feel isolated, or is it going to go back to what it was, where people say, wait a minute, so they've stopped, we don't have to turn on TV and look at dead Palestinian babies anymore? Oh, thank God. So let's get back to what we were doing, which is chugging along with normal economic activity where the Palestinians are problematic. We don't want to do it. And so the danger here is that all the sacrifice that the Palestinians have made, and believe me, they are making the suffering they're doing through, and you see there's a growing recognition amongst them that they have to do this. This is their burden to pay to get statehood, that all of that will be for naught, because there will be a desire to, we don't want to embarrass Israel. We don't want to humiliate Israel. We're going to look for a compromise solution where we have a moderate Israeli government who will return to giving lip service to, reviving Oslo, but never really being serious about reviving Oslo. And gradually the Palestinians will be forgot again. I'm afraid that's the direction that we're heading. And so, it's imperative that the international community find a way to sustain this pressure, because change will happen because the United States feels the pressure. I mean, when we start turning on Israel, you know the pressure is working. All right. But the problem is, let's say we get Israel to change, the fighting stops in Gaza. Now the United Nations comes in with their, because the UN doesn't like the Palestinians either. I mean, nobody likes the Palestinians. They've been getting screwed by everybody forever. And so you start turning it over to these old institutions, and it's forgotten. The only one out there articulating right now for the Palestinians seriously is Iran. And here's where the hope is, because Iran has good relations with two nations who are the nemesis of the United States in the geopolitical arena, Russia and China. And Russia and China have historically kept sort of a hands-off approach to the Palestinian issue. But I think Russia and China, I think they do care about the Palestinians. There's a genuine concern. You see, Putin articulating things that no Western leader has ever articulated about what Israel is doing, criticizing Israel. And China's talking about getting engaged. And it's in China's interest to take advantage of what's going on to expand. Because what is Gaza going to need? Infrastructure development. Who's pretty good at that? China. So it's an opportunity for China. It also, if you keep pushing the necessity of a Palestinian state to resolve this Arab-Israeli conflict, you keep putting pressure on the United States too. What the United States wants to do is quickly get back to, even though Biden says that we won't be returning to October 6th, I guarantee you all the U.S. wants to do is get back to October 6th. That's all we want to do. We're not looking forward to any of this innovative political stuff in the Middle East. It scares us. Russia and China, on the other hand, are looking forward to something like that. So I'm not giving up hope for the Palestinians, but I am saying that all this stuff that we're seeing, all this pressure, these votes at the UN, that can disappear that quick. And you know it. You know it can, because we're not talking about, a deep foundation of love for the Palestinians out there in the world. We don't like seeing dead Palestinian kids. So people are rallying to the cause of Palestine. But when the kids stop dying, will that support for Palestine still be there? And that's the big question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big question, and I share your sentiment about where the hope is, because yes, Iran is indeed a very serious actor when it comes to supporting Palestine, and I think you're exactly right. Both Russia and China, when it comes to this region, see the Palestine question as both one of course, standing for international law. That's what Russia and China like to do. They like to promote it because it's within their interests. Most stable, rational countries who are thinking about both their own development and what's good for the world in terms of their own development, it's stability, it's peace. It's not having this massive conflict which could lead, that's genocidal in nature, that could lead to a very hot war between most countries in the region. That is an ultimate disaster for Russia and China. So, of course, this Palestine question is so important to not just stabilize, but also, Russia and China are the only countries outside of the region, for the most part, outside of some outliers that don't have the same kind of influence. But the biggest countries that do support a Palestinian state and legitimately do, not giving lip service like Blinken does when, he says we're for this two-state solution, and then, green lights the absolute eradication of it that Israel is pursuing. Both Russia and China actually do support this.
Yeah, and we are living in an age of geopolitical transformation. I mean, it sounds very academic. It sounds like geopolitics 201, your junior level course in college for that international relations degree. But it's real and it's happening, and it's in many ways it's exciting, but in many ways it's scary, because we collectively, the world, have for so long grown accustomed to American hegemony. We can talk about how we're opposed to it, and everybody's like, we're against American imperialism. We're against hegemony. We're against the rules-based international order. Of course you are, except you're not, because you are for stability. And while there is a whole bunch of instability in the world out there, there's a whole bunch of stability that's brought about by this. And people are lulled into a false sense of complacency by the perception of stability. And right now, where this transformation that's taking place from the American singularity to this global multipolarity, BRICS and all that stuff, it scares people, because it means you have to put your faith and your trust in something else. Now, if you're somebody who has been disrupted by the American singularity, yeah, you're ready to jump ship. But if you're somebody whose life has been chugging along in relative comfort, it's a scary proposition, a frightening proposition. So it's not, automatic logic where people say, well, America's failed, so we're going to jump on the Chinese and the Russian ship. Well, for many places in the world, America hasn't failed. We didn't get to be number one because we're a bunch of losers. Okay, we did some things right, and we bullied our way to the top, whatever you want to say. But America is a very powerful nation that has a lot of successes attached to it. And a lot of people around the world found those successes attractive, especially the political and economic elites who make money off the American singularity. And so this idea that we're just going to seamlessly transfer power over to the Russians and the Chinese, that ain't going to happen. This is a very scary time. And it would be scary if this transformation was taking place in a conflict-free environment. But now we start throwing in the not only the reality of war, but what's that biblical statement? Rumors of war. There will be rumors of war. There will be wars and rumors of war. So we have real war, but we have rumors of war too. Potential of conflict that is generated by the friction that comes from this transformation. It scares the crap out of me. And I think it scares the crap out of just about anybody who's out there, because, is the United States willing to go gently into that good night? Dylan from Dylan Thomas here. Or are we going to rage against the dying of the light? And my fear is that we're going to rage, and we're going to lash out, and we're going to create problems. We're going to make as much friction as possible, rather than doing the smart thing, which is to smoothly transition and take an important seat at the table of multipolarity. We're going to resist that for as long as possible. And the consequences aren't just going to be economic and political disruption, but it can be, chaos and conflict as well. So as much as it makes sense for Russia and China to step into this Palestinian, crisis and be the leaders to get us out, it's just not that easy. America's not going to give up the role that it's enjoyed for the last, 40, 50 years as the lead influencer in the Middle East region. We're not going to, hand that mantle over to Russia and China willingly. So there's a lot of disruptive capacity out there, a lot of mischief for America to cause, going forward.
Yes, indeed. And perhaps we can close the program on this. You wrote a couple of articles in the last couple of weeks. One of them is for Energy Intelligence. You wrote about, is the U.S. still an essential nation? And you also wrote for RT recently an article about the U.S. military's multi-trillion-dollar fraud. And there were a lot of interlocking, very interconnected points about everything that you just stated. And so I wanted to ask you to close here, with regard to these developments. You are also trying to build a campaign, waging peace. You're trying to develop a film. I'll pull all of this stuff up as you're talking. Given that the United States is spending so much on its military, and all of its maneuvers and its leadership are committed to these maneuvers, point to a pretty disastrous conflict that you say with Russia, with China, and you also have this unresolved and with what's gone on with Israel's onslaught in Gaza. Obviously, still a very relevant point, the Middle East or West Asia. That is still very much a possibility of potential hot conflict. given all of this, I mean, one, how do you feel like your film, Waging Peace, will contribute to, helping the United States become a more rational actor on the world stage? And two, uh, where do you see this going? Do you see, because on the one hand we have the United States' belligerence is so clear for all of us, but on the other hand there are some pretty stark barriers. A lot of money being spent, not a lot of wars being won, and that could very well lead to massive changes in its own right. So I'll kick it to you while I pull up your materials.
Well, I'm old school American, I guess I will say, is that I have faith in the system. I know if I glance over to the comments, I'm probably going to be eviscerated for saying that. How could you have faith in the system? How could you? Look, if I don't have faith in the system, if I don't believe in the potential of this country, then what the hell do I believe in? I mean, America doesn't exist. It's not, it's not a viable entity. And I'm not willing to go down that route. So I hold out hope that the American people will be able to be awakened by all that's happening around him. I wrote this article in RT, and one of the things I talk in there is about the fact that the United States has grown so accustomed to throwing money at the Department of Defense because we just assumed that if we funded it, then America will be able to win every war in the world. And what the American people are finding out is that not only could we not defeat the Taliban, not only could we not defeat Al-Qaeda, we can't beat Russia, China, we can't beat anybody, we can't beat Iran. We don't have the ability to do this, and yet we're spending all this money. And so I think there's a growing sense of betrayal. And the idea of, America being the essential nation, we can't be the essential nation when we don't allow that's going to be passed on, and BRICS is going to mature as an institution and be capable of challenging the G7, the G20, and other Western-dominated forums.
Jack, in the United States of America, has Biden started to pressure Netanyahu enough to change the course of action in Israel, or have we not reached that point yet?
I think we see Biden starting to pressure. We see talk of sanctioning the, some of the West Bank settlers. And we hear talk about, toning down some of the aid potentially, but it's very difficult given the impact of the pro-Israeli lobbies on American politics. I think the real impetus for change is going to come from within Israel. I think you're seeing a growing number of Israelis recognize that Netanyahu is the greatest threat. He's an existential threat to Israel, and that he needs to be removed regardless of what the United States thinks or says. So I think the biggest pressure is going to come from inside Israel, not from the United States.
Sebastian in New York City, where the area code is 212. Given that the U.S. and Israel have a distinct advantage in their air power, how do the various resistance factions, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, etc., defend against this air power?
Well, first of all, air power alone does not win a war. I refer back to my experience during Desert Storm and trying to, facilitate the hunting of Iraqi Scuds in Western Iraq. We were able to fly A-10s and F-15Es and F-16s and everything else out there, and we never got one. They fired them. Well, now they had some effective air defense in certain areas, but the bottom line is we had uncontested air power, and we never killed a Scud, never came close. I think one time we got close, but that was more by luck than skill. And now with the Houthi, we're bombing, and they're still launching. Hezbollah has dealt with the Israeli Air Force. Air power doesn't guarantee outcomes. You need to combine air power with effective ground power. And right now, Hezbollah, the Houthi, Hamas, they've adapted to Israel's air superiority. Hamas has gone underground in tunnels, operating from the rubble of a city destroyed by air power. Hezbollah is also underground. And the Houthi, just a big country, and they're able to shuffle things around. They've been doing it since 2014 against American airplanes flown by Saudi pilots. So I think they've countered that.
Aries, that might be pronounced, last name P, in the United States of America. Gonzalo Lira met his demise in the hands of the Ukrainian secret police. Do you stand by your previous statements that he was a turned collaborator, or will you be revising your position?
Look, Gonzalo Lira's death was a tragedy. I'm sorry he's dead. I wish he hadn't died. I wish he had received care. I wish the United States government had shown concern for Gonzalo along the lines of the concern they show for the Wall Street Journal, reporter who was arrested in Russia, ostensibly for spying. But that's not the issue. The question is what I previously said. What's the gentleman's name? I want to be
Aries, A-R-E-S. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Aries. Answer me this question, Aries. This is a simple mind problem here. You got Gonzalo Lira in Kharkov. That's Ukraine, by the way, broadcasting on the internet in a manner which violates Ukrainian law. We know that. He knew that. He said so. He said, yeah, I'm breaking all sorts of laws here. And those laws that he violated carried the death penalty. He knew that too, because he said, if I'm ever arrested and I'm gone for more than 12 hours, assume I'm dead. Well, guess what, Aries? He got arrested by the Ukrainian Secret Service. Should have died, right? I mean, he was after violating the laws. Should have died, right? No, 5 days later, he's released. He called it my missing week. He sort of smirked about it. He's under house arrest. He has an ankle bracelet on him, and they give him his computers back. To do what, Aries? To continue doing the exact thing he was doing when he was arrested, violating Ukrainian law. Come on, man. Turn on your brain for a second. Do you think he did that with the permission of the Ukrainian government? Or was he so bold and brave that even under house arrest, using computers given to him by the Ukrainian government, he was trying to exercise free speech? And he wasn't doing it covertly. He had a whole new roundtable format where he's bringing people in and all this kind of stuff. Dude, I've been around the block. I know counterintelligence. I know how these operations work. There is no other way to describe this other than that he was a controlled SBU asset. He was arrested, charged with crimes that bring the death penalty. He was released and allowed to do the exact same thing while under house arrest. Okay, if you can't square that curve, don't talk to me.
All right. Yeah, I don't really understand the flack you get about this. First of all, I think you're right. And even if you're not, you're just giving your opinion about what happened. It's not as if you said anything that's disrespectful towards him, I don't think. Well,
I mean, some people say, oh, well, you say he's a controlled asset. You tell me. I mean, all the people go, bullshit, this guy, fuck off, Bronson. What do you know, Bronson? What are your credentials? Are you a counterintelligence agent? Have you ever done this for a fucking living? I have, asshole. Okay. I know a controlled asset when I see a controlled asset. And Gonzalo Lira was a controlled asset. And all you assholes out there who fell in love with Dr. Red Pill and whatever he had to say, up to the first arrest. Greenhorn, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with that. But once he was arrested and then released under house arrest to do the exact same thing, there ain't no other explanation, pal. None. Zero. Zip. So shut the fuck up. I'm tired of this conversation. I really am. You guys fell in love with Gonzalo Lira. That's your own little fantasy world. Leave me the fuck out of it.
All right. So in other words, you will be revising your position on Gonzalo Lira.
Yeah, I'll deliver it in Morse code.
All right. Guy from Tel Aviv, Israel. What's your current understanding of the potential war between Israel and Lebanon and its potential outcomes? Living here, it's pretty frightening thinking what the Lebanese arsenal can do to where I live. Netanyahu is a psychopath and going to get us killed.
Yeah, I mean, look, my understanding of the potential war between Israel and Lebanon, let's put it this way. Israel's fought 2 stand-up fights with Hezbollah, and they lost them both. Hezbollah kicked the living shit out of Israel in southern Lebanon, evicting them from every place but the Sheba farms. I think that was in 2000. In 2006, Israel and Hezbollah had another go around, 33 days in, in the summer, and Hezbollah beat Israel then too. And now, what Israel's saying is, we're going to take the fight to Hezbollah. We're going to push Hezbollah back to the Litani River, and Hezbollah. You think they sat there and went, "Yeah, let's get ready to let the Israelis do what they want to do. Let's prepare defenses all the way up to the Litani River in depth, because we know the Israelis have been preparing to do this." The Hezbollah said this: if there's another war, it ain't going to be fought defending the Litani. We're going to make you defend northern Israel. We're going to seize Galilee. And that's the reality. When this war starts, Israel's going to punch about 30,000 troops up into southern Lebanon towards the Litani, and then about 15 to 20,000 Hezbollah fighters are going to appear in their rear in, Kiryat Shimona and other places, and they're going to seize northern Israel. They're going to take it up to the Galilee. There's not a damn thing Israel can do it down. Meanwhile, Israel, what about the Israeli Air Force? They have to take off and land somewhere, right? Are we agree with that? It's not magic. It's not a computer game where they can just magically, click, 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 click. The Israeli Air Force is here. They got to be on a base. That base is on land. That land is within a range of Hezbollah's precision-guided munitions. And they will eliminate these bases and the airplanes that operate on these bases. So Israel won't have an air force. Not only that, but every strategic target in Israel will be saturated with long-range precision strike missiles coming out of Hezbollah that aren't the unguided rockets being fired by Hamas from Gaza. It's going to be the real deal. It's game, set, match. Israel can't win. And so, fortunately, the Israeli army knows this. They're aware of this, and they're not going to commit suicide. I think Netanyahu has got to go, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people are pushing for him to go, because his only ability to stay in power is to be relevant as a wartime leader. He just lost in Hamas, against Hamas and Gaza. I hope all the Israelis understand. You guys lost. Take the L, man. And now the only way he can stay relevant is to have a new war. And he's talking about it with Hezbollah, but he'll take Israel down with it. And I'm starting to believe that the Israelis recognize this, and there's a big movement now within Israel for him to take a hike.
All right, let's do one more question and then do the coin giveaway. Even though he typed in all caps, we'll make an exception and take this question anyway. You know how that drives me crazy. Kareem Abulafa in the United Kingdom. Last year, some commentators were talking about a civil war in Israel due to the judicial reforms Netanyahu was trying to force through. It exposed major fissures in Israeli society. Once the Gaza assault and other local conflicts come to end, will these fissures within Israeli society be intensified? Will there be a civil war?
Well, I mean, you're right. The judicial reforms, the rewriting of Israeli basic law, did create serious fissures. The Israeli Supreme Court has ruled against Netanyahu's efforts to subordinate the Israeli judiciary to a politicized Knesset, and so that's done away with. This is why Netanyahu's so desperate right now, because he knows that he's going to be arrested and charged and all that. So I think what's happening is he's trying to work out a mechanism where he is granted some sort of amnesty, so that if he relinquishes power, that he won't be arrested, that he will be allowed to either go into exile or internally or externally. I don't think he's going to hang around Israel much longer, because there will be a commission about October 7th and what happened and the crimes committed, and he and his government won't fare well. That commission could get very ugly, but I don't think you're going to see a civil war come from it. But I will say this: back in 1998, when I was working with Israeli intelligence, a colonel whose job it was to put together the assessment, the ranking of threats to Israel, said that the number one threat to Israel was from far right-wing Israeli Jewish Orthodox extremists. He recognized that in 1998, and that's the reality today. So there's a big problem. You have a lot of people with weapons. How Israel is going to deal with the West Bank settlers is still an unanswered question. But I don't think they're going to go to civil war. I think that the revision of basic law could have taken them down that direction. The Israeli president warned about that, but that problem's been resolved. Let me. I have been told that there's a new kill list, out, different than the Mirotvorets kill list, and that I feature prominently in that. So, and that this one is actually coordinated with Western intelligence. There's a known linkage with British intelligence, for example, and they are encouraging. They're through the website. They've placed a $10,000. God, if you're going to kill me, come on, man, earn more than 10,000. That's sort of cheap, really. Make it 50, make it 100, but 10, that's insulting. But so it's there. And while I was traveling, there were concerns that that the Ukrainians were, or could be, or would be, or are, who knows, actively targeting. So it's not fantasy; it's real. I was also briefed by people who are knowledgeable of these things that I should be really concerned here in the United States, not just over in Russia, that there are elements of the American-Ukrainian society that are unstable, and the closer Ukrainian defeat comes to being actualized, the more desperate they might become. So it's a threat. Israel, look, the Israelis have, they're insane right now. They are literally governed by insane people. Who knows? It is what it is. There's not much you can do about it. I can say that I don't really give a shit. If you're going to kill me. Don't.
Well,
I prefer you don't.
Well, they'll have to get past Maverick first.
But Maverick will kick your ass, and then Machismo, my secret asset, the Chihuahua from hell, will rip your throat out. And Tegan, the big older shepherd dog, will just watch it all and advise. But the point is, you can't live your life in fear. If you're going to try and do the right thing, and you have plenty of enemies trying to stop you, the quickest way to stop you is through intimidation. And they've been trying to intimidate me my entire life. It isn't going to work. I'm not saying this from bravado, because I don't want to die. I don't want to get shot. I don't want my family put at risk. I'd prefer to have a nice, happy life. I ain't getting any younger. So it's not like I'm sitting there saying, bring it on. No, don't bring it on. Leave me the fuck alone. But I'm not going to stop doing what I do, because people out there are trying to intimidate me and others into silence. And I would hope that others on the list, and I know some, Diane Sayers on the list, others are on the list, Ray McGovern, we have so many friends on that list. None of them are shutting up, and nor should they. So to all the people that think they can silence me, pound sand. It ain't going to work.
All right. Everybody who's anybody is on that list.
You'll be on it too, Jeff. We'll get you on that list.
Yeah, by hanging out with you. That's how they're
right.
taking Trump. How they're taking Trump down. All the people around him are getting hassled in one way or another. Old Blind Jim, how would you feel about lowering your computer?
I just did, sir. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, sir. What would you like to say to Scott?
Okay. I do empathize with Scott on his feelings, and I empathize with you on your outlook about Tucker Carlson. He does need to revamp the way he goes about things. Now, I was thinking that possibly after this interview with Putin, maybe Scott could possibly reach out to the people he knows in Chechnya and wherever else he's been to see if he could possibly make a connection with Vladimir Putin. And possibly he could also get in touch with Tucker Carlson to see if Tucker would interview him and people like Diane Sayer and, the rest of the people on the list. That way, I think there would be more of an avalanche of the people of this country getting more knowledge in a faster way. So that's my question to Scott.
Right.
And
all right,
again, Jeff.
Thanks for calling. You can listen to Scott's answer on your computer. All the best, Old Blind Jim. Thank you very much.
Let me put it this way. Jeff, you can back me up on this. I'm not a journalist. I mean, I play one on TV. I function as a journalist. I write articles. I go and do research. I travel and I comment on that. So I engage in journalism, but I'm not the guy to interview Vladimir Putin. It's not my place to do that. I mean, I would love to have a conversation with Vladimir Putin. And if we recorded that conversation could be played. That would be wonderful. But I'm not a journalist. First of all, a journalist A journalist is not an expert. A journalist is a person who writes questions and asks questions. I'm a freaking expert. Okay. I'm not a journalist that sits there and has somebody else do the research for me and ask questions. No, I engage on that which I'm an expert in, and I'm very comfortable doing that. And I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody in Russia, especially the Russian president, about the status of U.S.-Russian relations, about arms control, about Russia itself. I'd love to get more insight from Vladimir Putin about the decade of the 90s and the problems he faced in those formative years of his presidency, the first term, as he dragged Russia out of that. I'd like to have more insight into that. I'd love to have a conversation with him about that. But I'm not going to compete with Tucker Carlson on an interview. Tucker Carlson's got this unique opportunity, and hopefully he knocks it out of the ballpark. And it's there. And the last thing I would want to do is go in and have this is Oscar award level interview. What, I'm supposed to come in with a B level movie and compete with that? No, that ain't going to be what I do. What I would like to do is talk to Tucker Carlson when he gets back about his experience in Russia and to compare notes about Russia and to talk about Russophobia, because now Tucker's starting to experience firsthand something I've been experiencing for a long time, the attacks. And I'd love to have a conversation with Tucker Carlson about what it means to be an American, how the true definition of patriotism isn't to sit back and nod your head dumbly at what the U.S. government tells you to nod your head at, but rather to go out and challenge the U.S. government to gather knowledge and information. What is the motto of the show? Knowledge is power. We sell a t-shirt that says that. Well, Tucker Carlson's in the business of gathering knowledge, and it will empower you. I'd love to have that conversation with Tucker. So, Tucker, if you're listening, if you're watching, or if any of your people are watching, when you get back, call me. And I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you.
All right. Well, whether you call it an interview or a conversation, every Wednesday, Scott hosts the Scott Ritter Show, in which the guest is a military expert, usually from Russia. And they have what I would call an interview, but you can call it a conversation if you want. And in any case, it streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on Rumble and Locals. And you can get links to those channels directly if you go to scottritter.us. The URL is right at the bottom there. And let us move on to the next question.
Well, this
from
week, just so everybody knows, this week the interview was with the former Prime Minister of Ukraine, Nikolai, and
you weren't ready for this.
Oh God, I wasn't ready for you to bring that up. But Azarov, Nikolai Azarov. And so we had a very nice conversation about the current state of civil military affairs or relations in Ukraine, the Zelensky-Zaluzhny controversy, and what the path to peace could look like.
All right. And if you're not already familiar with how to find us on Rumble or Locals, quickest, easiest way to get there is scottritter.us, and you will see the links there. The next question is from Charmaine in Oregon. I just watched HBO's 5-part series on Chernobyl. Have you seen it? Thoughts on the series? It certainly captured the bravery of Russians.
Well, the first thing you have to understand about the series is that while I think it did a fantastic job of covering the real situation, beware, because there are some characters there who are an amalgam of characters. They've taken like 5 people and made them into one. You have to do that for shows of this nature, because to tell the truth using all the personalities, it would just get too confusing for TV. So they did simplify. But I went in and I dug deep into into each of the characters and the storyline, and they nailed it. I mean, there's even the people who lived through it are like, yeah, no, that's what it was. And I would recommend that show to anybody. I think it was fantastic. I've watched it several times. It's just it's an engrossing show. It's a terrifying show. But I think the person nailed it right. The heroism of the Russians, of the Soviets, because it was indeed during Soviet times, the heroism displayed by people, especially those knowing they were going to die. I mean, the people did things with absolute knowledge that they were going to lose their lives because of this. And many of them did die of cancer, excruciatingly. It's just, I think you know, I would just recommend it to anybody. It was a very informative show, but I mean, if you're not near tears by the end of the show, then you're not a human being.
All right. In the interest of full disclosure, we should tell folks that I am, in fact, an AI-generated composite myself, sort of a combination between Fabio and Larry David. In case it wasn't obvious, it's about time we came clean on that. Hey, Scott, how about a voicemail message from a woman named Rowan who wants to know about Russian hospitals?
Hi, Scott and Jeff. I had a question for Scott. I wondered, as a healthcare worker, if while you were in Russia, you had a chance to visit any hospitals or casualty units and how those might differ from those in the US. Thank you.
Well, I need Jeff to take me off the 3-minute timer for this one, because it's
really, you want me to not do it for this?
If I'm going to answer this one seriously, then I have to tell a little bit of a story.
All right. We won't put you on the 3-minute clock.
With your permission. Look, when I was in Russia in May, you know, Alexander Ziryanov, who the people in the show should be familiar with, we actually, he was interviewed by us while I was in Russia this last time. You know, he was outstanding host. And, but, you know, people may not know it, but I suffer from pretty bad peripheral neuropathy. My legs don't work. And I sort of have to retrain myself to walk every morning because I have no feeling in my legs. So I have to get up in position, and I do my best. I get on with it. But he noticed me getting out of the vehicle, that he's sitting there going, "Hey, there's something wrong with this dude." And so he said, "You all right?" And I said, "Well, not really. Yeah, but I'll get on." But he was concerned. And so he, I told you he has the magic phone. And so he picked up the phone and he called a doctor. And next thing you know, I have a